I flew to every corner of the US and I'd eaten all of the food that kind of became, the staple of Smithburg. So what we are is an American diner based at the South Melbourne market that is basically my memories of all the best food I ever had when I spent all that time in North America.
Welcome to this episode of the Ingredients Podcast, brought to you by Tanda, helping the best venues get ahead. Now, if you run a great venue, but you want to be compliant at the same time, reach out to the Tanda team at hospitality@tanda.com.au. Welcome to this episode of the Ingredients Podcast. And today we're here in Smithburg in the South Melbourne market, talking with Dean, someone I've known for over a decade. Today we talk about how he built a menu from all his time in North America, how he changed this brand from Marco to Smithburg, and how he feels about scaling the brand moving forward. And the last thing, how he makes it look different in a crowded marketplace. Hope you enjoy the episode. Dean, welcome to the Ingredients Podcast.
Thank you, Shaun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us in your amazing venue, Smithburg, here in South Melbourne. In the amazing South Melbourne market. Feels very nostalgic because I just have memories back of Eat Marco, and I want to talk about Marco in this podcast because it was my favourite time in this venue.
Yep.
So we'll talk about that. But how did you get into burgers?
How did I get into burgers? I'll try and make this short and succinct, which might be a bit of a struggle because I think I'm now entering year 21 in burgers.
Okay.
Which might even have you beat.
Yes,
potentially.
Definitely
So, so year 21. So I started off with a bit of a love of cooking, but then going into something that had nothing to do with food after university. And I grew up in country Victoria, and then I went overseas and I found a spot, Vancouver, Canada, which I instantly fell in love with. So I like snowboarding and eating and drinking and doing all sorts of fun stuff when you're traveling and you're young. And I applied for a job out of the newspaper because I thought I might want to stay in Vancouver for a little longer. And it was a blind ad. I didn't know what I was applying for. I knew the position, but I didn't know the company or the industry or any of that stuff. And I ended up getting a role. I must have been sort of 26 or so, and I got a role as the one of the commercial managers at A&W Canada. So A&W Canada, 1,000 restaurants from coast to coast, and my job was basically buying and contracting the beef, the bread, the fruit and vegetables, the root beer. A&W root beer is kind of a famous thing and kind of a big deal, and so there was a bit of pressure there. So, and I think I was in charge of $300 million worth of commercial spend at 26. I think I did about 100 flights a year, every year to all corners of North America, as a part of that job, visiting restaurants, our restaurants and visiting suppliers and whatnot, produce fields, cattle farms. And I stayed there for about five and a half years or something, and then returned to Australia and did similar things. So I'm not the hospitality person that grew up in a restaurant. I grew up on spreadsheets and aeroplanes more than in a restaurant. But that was my first job in food, which I loved. Yeah.
How did you pick great supply and great suppliers during that time? Because does beef just end up does cows just end up looking extremely similar? Did lettuce just look extremely similar after a period of time? How do you figure out what is the best quality for a brand?
Yeah, I think why I got hired into that role is the reason that it was the reason I was good in that role is I was from more of an engineering background. So I used to work in the automotive industry in Australia before I left. And then I have a love for industries that it's almost impossible to make profit in. So automotive followed by hospitality.
Yes.
And then, but the level of detail that you needed to go into in terms of automotive industry, how to specify things and understand the whole value of something is something that not many people probably in that business got as well as I did growing up in such a tough industry like the automotive industry. So sort of to answer your question, they were great at what they did. My boss there probably taught me a bit about you give sort of contracts and business to people rather than sort of specifications and numbers. So I already had the specification and number bit, and then I learnt there a little bit more about the humans that you're putting the business with and being able to trust people more than anything. Because I think what's classic in when you're buying stuff is that what you contract on day one tends to drift over time, and it's not the same thing 6 months down the track.
Yeah.
And so I was quite good at specifying how that wouldn't happen, but I didn't quite understand what they knew, which was if we put it with good people, it'll probably stay really good for the long haul.
Yes.
And so we already had a bunch of great suppliers, so I didn't have to renovate that list too heavily. And they were all the best at what they did. So all of our beef suppliers, and we went right from, they used to call it field to fork. So we went right from where is the cattle being grown, what muscles are we choosing to go into the paddies, how does that make its way from the field to sort of we used to have our paddies made for us, a little different to Smithburg where we just buy meat and we do it in-house. We used to have them made so they turn up to the restaurant ready to go. And so every step along that chain we had to understand to make sure that you didn't get a call from a restaurant saying, hey, this isn't right, and they don't get the million steps that go into how that ingredient gets right before it gets to them. So so it was kind of that balance between sort of the logical side and then probably just putting it with a set of people who you really trust who have similar values to you and want to do a good job for you.
Sure. What drove you back to Australia? Why didn't you just continue snowboarding?
I think I was homesick. Like, honestly, that sounds a bit lame. And at the time, I wouldn't have said that I was homesick. I would have I would have had a better reason than that. But I felt the pull of coming back to Australia. It was very interesting coming back to Australia because I felt like I'd changed, and certainly Bendigo, where I grew up, had changed quite a lot, or it had stayed the same. And I just felt like it was different. It was probably a bit of both.
Right.
And then, so I did end up coming to Melbourne pretty quickly when I was back. But I probably wanted to be close to, mum, dad, brother, sister. I probably honestly didn't want to get married overseas and then have the rest of my life be that dislocated from where I grew up. So that was probably I was approaching a time in life where those decisions were probably coming.
Yes.
And I might have held them off and had a bit of Peter Pan syndrome for a while to extend my stay. But I think that was kind of over. It was time to come back.
So we met, over burgers. And that was a good part of your life, obviously, before you came and did Marco and then what turned into Smithburg. What makes a person from a supply chain background and not an operational restaurant background decide to open a restaurant?
Naivety is part of it. I would say I'll do my best job to be honest here because I've got plenty of answers, I think, to the question. I think I felt like a fraud and this is my own perspective on the world. If I don't know every nut and bolt on the floor of a restaurant, it didn't make a lot of sense to me to feel like I was running businesses that had 100 restaurants.
Right.
Because I felt like the people that were relying on me to make really good decisions for them, I probably didn't have the understanding or empathy for what they did to the degree that I felt like I needed it to make good decisions. So you'll get people that are very comfortable making decisions on issues that they're not expert about. And I'm probably not one of them. So I felt like my whole career was going from starting off at 1,000 restaurant company, moving into where we met, probably a 35 restaurant company that grew to 100 during that time, to moving into sort of a CEO role in a business with probably 20 or 25 that was a different role. And it was probably at that point, combined with COVID, and I was thinking about starting something, I felt like I eventually had to get down to, right, I'm going to be the guy that washes the dishes, cooks the food, cleans the plates. Like I've done every job in this restaurant now. And so now I think our objective is to grow this. And so I feel like I've done my time, and it also helps me when someone's got a problem, I can really fully understand what that problem is and put in a smarter solution than I might have if I hadn't lived that life before. So I don't know if that answers the question. I just felt a pull to kind of get back to that one restaurant, understanding every bit of it before moving to something bigger. And I probably did it the wrong way around. But
you still did it.
It is what it is. I would never be in hospitality I didn't work in hospitality when I was going through school and stuff, so
Yeah,
it just
right.
wasn't a stream that I was in. I was basketball obsessed. I used to referee basketball. I used to work at a service station when I was at university. I just never did the hospitality thing, and
Yeah,
so
right.
I think now I've got plenty of sort of restaurants under the belt in that real experience that I think people like you have, having grown up in hospitality.
What made you purchase this restaurant in South Melbourne Market? It's a very unique position.
Or yeah, it's got its real benefits and its real challenges. So first of all, I live close, and so I thought, again, wanting to be there all the time so that I could understand a new restaurant as it opens. I wanted to be there a lot. So having it being close to home, had two very young kids when we opened, so that spending your life driving across Melbourne or something probably wasn't a good investment in time. My wife is also a business owner, and her business is significantly bigger than Smithburg now. But making sure that I could kind of hold life together and be close to home was probably the first one. So that had the radius from home about where we chose the property. And then at the time we were looking, we actually thought COVID was coming to an end. It happened to be the in-between of the first and second wave. And the second wave, I think, was potentially more impactful for the hospitality industry than the first one.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd kind of picked it and said, well, there's some property available, there's something at the market, there's still people coming to the market, and where people were flowing had changed. But we could still see that the market was quite busy. There was a property available. We applied. In this market, there's a bidding, like they publicly advertise all property and then go through a selection process. So I think we had to pitch against 16 other businesses for this site. For better or for worse, we won. And we'll talk about Marco. I think you want to talk about Marco, maybe worse.
Yes.
I felt really comfortable knowing that at least 5 days a week you would have the whole market dragging people to the property, rather than we had to sort of run our own race completely on our own. So it felt like a pretty healthy precinct to come into.
Let's talk about Marco now that you've said it.
Yep.
Marco is a very different brand than what we're currently sitting in now as Smithburg.
It was.
Both an aesthetic and obviously menu.
Yes.
What was Marco?
Yep.
And how long did it? How long was it around before you changed it into Smithburg?
So Marco. So if you think about where I was coming from, I was probably coming from running sizable businesses. And so the objective wasn't to come into a restaurant and have the neighbourhood burger joint or whatever. It was to come in and see if we could create a concept that had some version of scalability next to it, so we could build a number of them. And the thinking around it was, first of all, we need an idea that there's not a million competitors for, because if you want to grow multiple things, if it's kind of new and interesting and unique, that works in your favour if it is successful. It makes the initial concept much harder to execute, because if people don't know what it is, it's hard for them to kind of understand who you are and walk in and spend their money.
Yes.
We found that out pretty clearly. And as I looked around, so Marco, short answer to the question is it was a plant-based casual diner. And so in my mind, it's not that different to Smithburg in that we're pretty casual. We want to be quite boozy. We do table service. What we serve is casual food that's really approachable and accessible.
Yep.
But I guess the unique part of Marco, it was a plant-based version of that. When we worked through the menu, we decided that potentially a Mediterranean slant on that was the best way to create a menu that wasn't about fake meat and things. It was just about food used in a different way where you could create delicious casual food. So we did things like burgers, we did pittas, we did bowls or salads, and it was all about sort of taking the fresh market ingredients into a kitchen with chefs, and then we would take lentils and beetroot and mushrooms and some starch and some other stuff in the kitchen, and we'd make a little patty out of it. And we would have a cheeseburger on the menu that was completely plant-based. It was actually plant-based whole food, so it was really good for you in a lot of ways, but still was as delicious or as close to delicious as a regular cheeseburger as you could get. So our mistake was thinking if you could meet the logical needs of people, which was if I can have my cake and eat it too. So if I can have my cheeseburger and it's
good for me.
actually really good for you, then we kind of made the mistake that we've solved the puzzle that was unsolvable. Nothing can stop us now, right? So, and we did that for, pitas were a little easier because we did sort of we did some falafel and things that are naturally plant-based, and you can do that with bowls and stuff as well. But we thought the burger element was so unique and different and delicious that it would be incredibly successful. And the chicken version we used cauliflower basically and coated it and fried it off like fried chicken. And again, super delicious.
Oh, it's great.
And you've eaten the food, I've eaten the food, and it didn't work is the cold reality. So Marco was, I often refer to it tongue in cheek. Maybe I'm still a little angry at Marco for not quite living up to what I'd hoped for.
Sure.
But I saw it as the best university project I ever did. It made sense on every level. It didn't work commercially. And then we had to wrangle with the fallout of that, which means that you can't pay people with good reviews because we had amazing reviews, but we need to make money. And we put a lot of money in there because we thought it was a matter of time. And then at the end of it, as a business owner, you've got to be disciplined enough, I think, to say it's going to take too long and it's going to cost too much. So I think Marco might have been successful if we were able to fund it for 3 years, losing money until we hit profit. And we just didn't have that much cash. So at some point you've got to say,
enough's enough.
Yep, got to change. So that was it.
Were you looking to another brand for inspiration when you started it?
Yeah, I think that's my standard MO is I always look at a lot of stuff, digest it, and then ideas kind of come from that. I think it might have been Paul Kelly that said the musician with the best record collection writes the best music. So I think what happens is you see and you eat and you listen to music or whatever, it all kind of goes into your head. And then there's certain things in those experiences that you've had that are meaningful to you, and then they pop out in ideas. And I think so the idea of it doing plant-based was pretty straightforward. I think at that time there was media everywhere about veganism, plant-based eating. We were intentionally plant-based because I wasn't vegan. I did eat a lot of vegetables, but I didn't want to play the ethical, you're a bad person if you eat this, if you eat meat, and you're a good person if you don't eat meat. I didn't want to play that game no matter what anyone thinks. I thought if we could just attack it from a positive only lens, which is this is delicious, and if you don't like it, don't eat here, because it was unarguably delicious. And so the stuff I started to lean on once we had the basic idea was, so there were probably things that were inspirational, like Leon in England was probably the single biggest design reference. We didn't really reference a whole lot of their menu, although I think while we were developing Marco, they did put a vegan burger on the menu. They were more about Mediterranean diet and having better for you meat and less meat. And I think they even blend meat with vegetables to lessen the amount of meat that they had. But from a design perspective, that brought a lot of the Mediterranean market elements, like the, those beautiful tuna, the beautiful sardine tins and the beautiful anchovy tins with the yellow and the blue and those vibrant colours. We brought a lot of that into Marco and a few of those design cues like Leon does. And then I probably went through, so that was the inspiration probably behind a lot of the design. And then from a menu point of view, I took the philosophy that I would figure out, because we wanted to do burgers, pittas and bowls. We felt like that was a good lineup for a casual eating experience at the market. And so then I went, who's got the best burger in Australia? Who's got the best pitta in Australia? And who's got the best sort of salads and bowls and stuff in Australia? Whether they've got meat in them or not. And I went, if we can make our plant-based versions as good or better than theirs, then how can we not succeed here, right? So
of course.
Mary's was probably the reference that I had for burgers, which is at the other end of the spectrum from from Marco and what it was trying to be, but I love the fact that they were chef-led, unapologetic about what they did. They were slightly controversial. I'm not a very controversial person, so I have hard time courting controversy. So
Sure.
we probably used that cheeseburger as a reference to go, I want it to give me the same, oh my God, I want to eat that again tomorrow kind of thing that you get with their burger.
Sure.
From a pitta point of view, Miznon out of Tel Aviv, and they've got an outlet in Melbourne. I just thought their pittas are just the best of the best, and we felt like if ours could kind of be in a conversation with theirs around quality, that would stand us in good stead.
Cool.
And bowls and things. I think Melbourne's cafe scene probably has some of the best salads, casual dining salads in the world, right? So, and then we're at a fresh food market. It's like put beautiful, colourful stuff in a plate and make it taste delicious. So we were able to do that pretty quickly. And I worked with one of my friends on the menu, who still is one of the best chefs in Australia. And so we played around for 6 months or something and got the menu perfect, and then kind of, opened the shop, which you helped with, by the way.
I did back in the day.
You got a call, a last minute call.
I did in a moon boot. It was great.
I had a chef that pulled out 2 days before we opened,
Yes.
head chef.
Yes,
So that was fun.
that was fun.
I became a real hospitality person then. When my head chef quit 2 days out from opening because he was too stressed to go through with it.
You can fully initiate
I
it.
really started to understand, that's what people
Yes, that's
talk
what it's
about
like.
when they're kind of in hospitality. This is usually I'm like calling an operations manager, go, you've got a problem to fix.
Yeah, all right,
But
bye.
It was kind of,
Yes.
it's kind of my problem to fix, so yeah.
I think a lot of people in hospitality don't know when to stop. And we talked
Yes.
about you running out of money.
Is this a judgment?
No, not at all. No, I'm not saying stop this.
Yes.
Don't know when to stop a concept, or don't
Yeah.
know when to stop a menu item, or don't know
Yes.
when to, whatever. And I think you could have gone and raised some more cash and probably kept Marco going for longer, right? But you decided not to.
Yes.
What was the point, the line in the sand moment that made you stop and change?
I didn't want anyone else to have money in this business that I didn't want in the business.
Sure.
So I think maybe I do court controversy. I think the mistake that a lot of restaurant operators make is they don't have enough money. They go and start a restaurant, and then they go to people that have money to help them fund their restaurant. And what happens when you become business partners with people is that it is harder to get out of than a marriage. And so I felt like if we were to go and raise capital, to your point, I went, first of all, I've got to tell people, hand on heart, give me your money. We've been losing money, and I promise you that it won't lose money forever.
Yep.
And I didn't know if I could make that promise in a way that I like to make promises. Like I think the amount of stress that would have created for me to risk other people's money, I was stressed enough about
Your
the
own.
money that we'd put in and the money that we'd lost, and what impact I'd had on my life and my family by that not being successful out of the gate. And I didn't want to make that decision out of desperation. And then I think I knew in my gut that we were too far from where we needed to be for me to have comfort that we were going to get there on a timeline that I was comfortable with. So
Sure.
again, I've got I look at the tech industry as probably the most entrepreneurial industry on the planet maybe, and people just throw money at them for ideas and there's no proof, but they just get funded. And they can go for 5 and 10 years and 15 years and 20 years and not make a cent, and people are very happy to fund that. I think with restaurants, people that put money in restaurants kind of want their money to start to pay back on day one. And I just thought the pressure it would create if we raised capital to keep going would be too great. And I also thought when you raise capital, you will also reduce your share in the business. So I'm like, I'm going to walk across broken glass for another year getting this business to work and then experience all of the pain that it takes to get a business to work. And I've just given half of it away because someone cut a check. And I just went, when I get to the end of it, I think I'm going to resent not owning more of that business if we took that money. So that's probably the answer. It was a mix of things in that we did this to create something and to own it and to create our own fate. And I felt like we might lose some of that autonomy and power. And on the way, I think we would have been doing it to prove my ego right that Marco was a great idea.
Sure.
I think the public told us that Marco wasn't a great idea. I mean, we're operating during COVID, so it was really hard.
Yeah,
but in
sure.
some ways, I think operating during COVID was a blessing because I'm not sure it would have worked great anyway. And it might have been a marginal restaurant, maybe not a restaurant that was losing money.
Right.
But we would have hung on for longer had it not have failed as quickly. So I think over time, I've at least convinced myself that the not making money was better than getting stuck in a marginally profitable sort of enterprise.
Sure. Were you thinking about Smithburg in the back end before closing Marco? How did Smithburg come about?
So I wasn't thinking about it. I'm pretty good at, I better be careful with the marriage analogies here, given I am married. So it's going to use something. But when I'm committed to something, I'm committed to something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I give it everything. And I worry about people that have a business that are dreaming about other businesses, because I don't think you're giving everything you can to the business that you're currently in.
Great point.
Bit like a marriage, but the next bit's not like a marriage.
Yes.
When you make the decision to kind of exit.
Yes.
And that will never happen with Jen and I. She's the best of the best. And so I felt like once all of the signals told us that it wasn't going to work, we actually took a break as a family, and we went away for 7 or 8 nights, and nice place on the beach, it felt very different to being around Marco, which was high pressure. And as we were walking along the beach, Jen's a really smart business operator, and she's been running her business now for probably 15 or 16 years, and she's been through a fair bit. She's got about 100 people, so she has complicated problems herself, and we're just talking about it, and she was very much of the mind, Marco will just work, it just needs time. And then she was also of the mind of, geez, it's painful and you're reasonably unpleasant to live with when things aren't working. Because I don't compartmentalise very well. Like if the business is not having a great time, like I find it very hard to park that, because I'm driven to succeed, and if you're not succeeding, it's a really tough existence.
Sure.
And so we're walking along the beach, and she's kind of like, well, I think Marco, maybe we should raise funds and all that kind of stuff that we've talked about. And I kind of went in my head and I said to her, I think we've got 3 options: fund it, keep going, which means raising capital and diluting the ownership and all of that stuff, because we kind of went, well, we're tapped out, we probably don't have more cash to put in. The second one would be to close it and walk away. And I felt in my heart of hearts, and I don't think this was ego, like I feel like I'm meant to run my own business, and to walk away from something that I'd started might have meant that I'd go back and work for people again in probably very interesting jobs and have a great time. But I felt like if I did that at that point, I would still have an itch to scratch and I would regret it. And I think that that would make me a very bad employee. I think if I wanted to go back, it had to be, I've had my go, it didn't work, I'm now very comfortable sort of turning around and doing this, and I wasn't there yet. And then I kind of said, and third option is, let's pretend none of this ever happened. And we've got a property at the South Melbourne market with lots of people there on Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays when the market's open. And I can build a new restaurant concept for about 30 grand. So we've already got a kitchen, we've already got furniture.
Yep.
It's kind of the wrong colours, and we've got to reprint some menus, and probably some of the staff will leave because they're vegan.
Yep.
Because we were running a plant-based restaurant, they didn't want to be involved in something that wasn't plant-based. But for a really low cost of entry, we'd already done the fit out and whatever, and we could kind of rebrand and turn it around for what I felt like was about 30 grand. So we could build a new restaurant for 30 grand. And I thought, I was pretty beaten up by the time I'd got there, but the appeal of building a new restaurant for 30 grand was, once I'd framed it that way for myself and for Jen, we just went, well, we can't not do it if I've got the energy to do it.
Sure.
So the energy was probably the factor. And then when I started to think about energy, really quickly, I opened my mind to something like Smithburg, and I'd say Smithburg came together in half a day.
Right.
Like it was,
Yeah.
it just came out, wrote a menu in 90 minutes, which is still the backbone of pretty much the whole menu.
Yeah.
Because it just lent so much on everything I'd done to that point. So part of the A&W experience was 100 flights a year. And on those 100 flights a year, I would eat at every burger joint, casual food joint, taco stand, dive bar, whatever, at every stop. So whether it's Chicago or Wichita, Kansas, or Arizona, California, like I flew to every corner of the US, and I'd eaten all of the food that kind of became, the staple of Smithburg. And I also fell in love with diners, because I thought diners were just the most human way to serve casual food, because it was just a vibe of often owner operators. The people were adults, they were hospitality people, they were really good at what they do. And I think just the value equation of a diner, you get to sit and have a cup of coffee and some great food and a conversation with a staff member, and maybe have a margarita as well at the end. If you're at the right kind of diner, then that was too good to pass up.
How did day one feel like of Smithburg? Did it feel relief? Did it feel, did your ego take a hit? Did it feel sad? Did you feel all of the above?
None of that kind of hit for a while, I would say. Sometimes when you're just really busy, there's just no time for the emotional processing. So I probably went through, I don't know that I grieved the loss of Marco at any point. I was probably a bit pissed off that it didn't work. Like I felt like it was unfair, because I felt like it was really good.
Yeah.
And I almost went, this is unfair that something can be so good and not work.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that my brain works that if you work hard, if you do things the right way, and you present it in a really compelling fashion, then things should just work.
Yep.
And it didn't.
Yep.
And that just felt like the world was a big scary place full of sharks, and that wasn't very, very fun. And so with Smithburg, there was such a push to just we rebranded the thing in, like I got the signs designed up. I lent on Jen, because she's got a comms agency. So I said, I need a graphic designer for a couple of days. I'm going to create this menu and do the signage and all of the stuff, and we were measuring up things. So we moved through that process in 5 days.
Wow.
So it was Marco, last service was on the Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. And I think we opened Smithburg, I don't think it was the Wednesday, I think it was the Friday morning. It was Thursday or Friday. So we'd turned around a whole menu, including product development. I wrote the menus before I'd had the food.
Right.
Because I knew the food would be fine, because I'd eaten so much of that food and cooked so much of that food that I'm like, if I can't do it, no one on earth can do it. Like the food's going to be the least of our problems.
Sure.
And I knew all of the suppliers I needed to know. Like I just knew everyone in that space. There wasn't too many problems to solve on the menu. Mm-hmm. And so it was more about the setting up your point of sale, getting your staff trained, getting all of your stock in, and getting everyone else prepared.
Sure.
Because what felt like a pretty straightforward change to me wasn't a straightforward change for the team, because this was all new to them.
Of course.
Although it was almost like I was coming home to a very safe place of burgers and fried chicken and Caesar salads and lobster rolls and things that I just knew how to do. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you communicate that Smithburg is different in a really crowded marketplace of burgers and sandwiches in Melbourne with such good quality?
Melbourne's crowded in terms of casual food? No, it's really crowded.
Yes.
My honest answer is I don't know. And I don't think we've cracked it yet. So I think we are different. I think what I'm quite good at is designing something that is good and unique. What I'm not very good at is talking about it.
Sure.
Part of the reason that we're sitting here is I write my little lists at the end of each year, and we're sitting at the start of the year right now. And I went, I've got to talk to more people about what Smithburg is.
Right.
Because people might not just wake up and go, I know what Smithburg is, right? So,
yeah.
So, what we are, and it probably so I'm doing a really long-winded way of explaining who we are and what we do. This is what I've got to work on. So what we are is an American diner based at the South Melbourne market that is basically all of the sort of my memories of all the best food I ever had when I spent all that time in North America.
Sure.
And it's in an American diner format, and we get a little boozy and a little loud and a bit fun.
Yeah. Yep.
And so there's a lot of elements in that. But effectively, a little bit like Marco, we took what we thought were best in class items and just tried to make ours as good or better.
Yep.
Ours is Smithburg's a little more nostalgic. So literally our cheeseburger is my memory of a couple of the best cheeseburgers that I ever had in Wisconsin in the US.
Where?
So Wisconsin is dairy country. They butter their buns. They actually used to use fresh butter instead of cheese on their burgers. We don't go that far because I'm not sure that Australia's ready for it.
Wow.
But we do sort of our version of butter burgers, which is there's a chain in Wisconsin called Culver's Frozen Custard that does butter burgers, and it was really that kind of burger that Shake Shack picked up and lifted and took across to New York back in the day. Like it was that Midwest corridor that really created things like smash burgers and some of that great food.
Yep.
And then we went through each item and kind of went, here's the menu we want. Lobster rolls exist on our menu because we thought at the market we needed a seafood item. And you kind of went through the list of whether it's a shrimp po' boy, and it didn't really feel like a diner could execute a po' boy, but maybe a lobster roll it could. And I spent a lot of time in the North Atlantic coast of Canada and ate a lot of lobster. They have lobster at the McDonald's there. And
Really?
I thought, so they have the McLobster. I don't know if they still do, but you'd go in and for like $15 you could buy like a McLobster because there's just these lobster boats that are coming in all day. And so we kind of brought that into those best of class sort of American food memories that I had. So again, that's a really long-winded way of saying what is different about us. But I think what I'm trying to convey with Smithburg is this is American food as you would probably eat it at the best spots in the US.
Yeah, right.
Where I used to eat at. Like it's as close to that as we could kind of make it. So
really cool.
The beef's different because it's Gippsland and it's I use my same little I want chuck, I want brisket, I want rib, and I wanted this fat percentage, and like these are all the details that we want in an Australian context, but it's as close to maybe a Culver's burger as you'll get. It's as close to kind of a lobster roll in Halifax, Nova Scotia that you might get if you're in the Maritimes.
Going back to the crowded marketplace in Melbourne, I know we've spoken about this before. If you had to pick one of these three, which is the most important, you think, for brand and expanding a brand in Victoria?
Yep.
Do you think it's the actual branding itself? Do you think it's the identity of the person who owns that brand? Mm-hmm. Or do you think it's the menu? If you had to pick one.
I think the first two are the same thing. So I think what maybe you mean branding is in design.
Yes.
I don't think that's important at all. And I think it's really helpful if you get it right, but I think it's not really important. And I'm not meaning to pick on anyone, but some of my favourite spots in Melbourne have the most appalling branding that you would see.
Sure.
I was at a restaurant yesterday that for my dollar might be the best sort of casual pasta that you'll have in Melbourne, and there's no marketers looking at that brand going, oh my God, I can see why this is successful. It just doesn't make any sense. So I think that is maybe helpful. I think the menu, I think there's basically got to be a fit where people go, yep, I want to eat it. And I think that comes from the menu. But I think it is really, we've got to a point in restaurants where I think if you want to have one successful restaurant, you might just have to have good food and a decent location maybe, and that's about it. But if you want to grow a number of restaurants, which we want to do, I think it really is the story of the person that becomes the defining factor of whether that's successful.
Yes.
So if I look at the fastest growing casual hospitality businesses in Australia, they generally are associated with a chef because that is a hacked quality. So people go, it's a chef, it must be good. And that weeds out sort of lots of stuff. And if it's a chef that's kind of worked somewhere that's really appealing, even better. And then there's the one there's a few around at the moment and it's the Hucksterberg Classic, was a fine diner producing a burger.
Yep.
Like that's another hack to just go.
Yeah, the high-low principle.
We've got this kind of story around that. So I think that that's what I'm seeing in the marketplace. And the mistake that I've made is I put all of my money on menu, and I just make our food as delicious as it can be, and then I kind of just go, have at it, guys. Come in and eat it, and then it's so good that you'll come back again and again and again.
Sure.
What I'm learning is without telling the story, and I do what most restaurants do, which is just make sure it's real good. Because in Melbourne, if you're not really good, then you're out of business.
Anyway, right? Yeah.
But the defining factor of success, particularly if you want more than one restaurant, has to be the romantic story of the owner or something else interesting about the owner that makes it so compelling you have to go try it.
So why do you think you haven't told the story of you going through cow paddocks in North America and understanding what makes the best cut of beef, for going through Wisconsin and understanding cheese and understanding dairy that makes the best burgers? Like, why haven't you told that story yet?
I think, I haven't done it, and it's been to the detriment of the business. So I should have done it before now, and I know that really, really clearly. And so I think maybe it's a more psychological question you're asking of what's your problem?
Sure.
Just say the story,
Yes.
And it's actually not bad. And
Yeah,
I think
it's a
that
really
is actually
good story.
I think it's actually really true. And I want to give you an honest answer to why I haven't done it.
Sure.
And it probably is that Melbourne is such a high level hospitality city that, as someone that probably comes out of cow paddocks and spreadsheets and commercial negotiations, and I cooked a lot in the product development kitchen, but I didn't do those hard grinding shifts that chefs cut their teeth on. I didn't have that chef story, and therefore you feel maybe not as qualified as a chef. Like being a chef is the ultimate qualification to being able to cook food.
Sure.
And because I can cook food really well, I definitely can't cook food as well as a chef if I'm doing 1,000 versions of it across a shift.
Fair enough.
But if you want me to do 3, 4 or 5 or 6 or 10, I can bang that out, and I'm getting a lot better at busier shifts if we're short-staffed. I'm
Sure.
pretty good.
Sure.
But I think that there was probably that feeling of, so what?
Right.
Who cares?
Yeah.
You're not a chef, therefore it's irrelevant.
Right.
And I think in some part, the food media landscape perpetuates it's a chef culture. And therefore, also, if you're trying to tell that story that I'm trying to tell, not many people are listening either, probably in the media space, but maybe in the consumer space, they're a bit more interested. So if you go straight to customers, which I think social media is a great hack for, and you can tell more of those stories. So I know that we've done a little bit about that on social media. I talked before we started recording about the amount of effort that's in social media and putting it together.
Yes.
And it's interesting that most of that content is our most well-received sort of content.
Yeah, right.
And so I think that story is worth telling. I haven't done it. There's a lot to do when you're running a restaurant, so there's lots of excuses not to tell a story.
Sure.
But I think this year, I'm committed to getting that more out there and seeing if that can be part of the recipe for Smithburg's growth. So we're growing really, really quickly, but I think that story in some respect might be able to turbocharge our growth, or at least have people at least understand why it's so good. So we often have people sit here and go, oh my God, how did this happen?
Yes.
And the food that we do is actually quite simple, but it's just following the simple rules and getting it right a lot. And if you unpack that for customers, it's kind of like magic for them in some respects, about where the meat comes from and how you cook it and the way you treat it, and those memories of places that I used to go and eat in North America. Like it's they tend to really enjoy the story behind it. Yeah.
2 more questions for you. Now that you do have a profitable concept that you're ready to scale,
Yep.
where do you want to scale to? And what kind of sites do you think you'll scale to? Like, do you think you'll do more market sites and become the burger place that like Market Lane Coffee does for near markets and that kind of stuff? Or do you want to do shopping centres, or where do you think you want to go?
It's a good question. I don't know. I've got a feeling. I think it's neighbourhoods.
Okay.
Probably, at least for a start. So I think that probably is just ruling in and ruling out why you would do stuff. I think I've thought about the market thing a bit. South Melbourne market is open Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And like most markets in Melbourne, it's not off the beaten track, so to speak, but it's not on the main strip
Sure.
of South Melbourne. It's more difficult to get people here on those non-market times, and people just assume you're closed. So I think the power of Melbourne markets is that everyone knows them, they know when they're open, and everyone lines up en masse to come there. So when they're open, we just get smashed with volume.
Yep.
But there's a lot of assumptions that we're not open and we're closed and all that stuff. So retraining people at those market spaces can be tricky. I suspect that if we talk to Market Lane Coffee, they'd probably have a similar experience, and they might not even open on those non-market days. But for us, I want to be a 7-day-a-week, morning to evening venture. Like we do pancakes, so we open for breakfast on market days. I'd love to create something that's morning to night. Cool. In terms of a concept. And I think shopping centres, most brands I see that do well in shopping centres come in with a lot of brand equity when they first go into shopping centres.
Sure.
Because I think rents are high, so you can't kind of live with people not knowing who you are or what you do. When you hit a shopping centre, it's got to be pretty well understood by the market. So I think that kind of leaves us with a few kinds of properties, whether it's CBD, and Melbourne CBD is amazing in some spots and not amazing in others. When I talk to operators about the CBD, there's some standoffishness, probably still, in the post-COVID kind of era for that CBD.
Sure.
And so that I see us as a neighbourhood strip, probably close to my house for a start, until we've got, a great operations manager that can help me manage things that are a bit more further away. So probably even south to southeast Melbourne, maybe in the very inner west if we kind of moved across there. But I'd love it to be within 5 or 10 minutes of home. I'd love to be there all the time.
Yep.
I live in St Kilda West, so ideally somewhere not too far from there. And I think there's also some famously troubled strips in that area too, which so we're starting to look at the moment, but I suspect it's neighbourhood. And the thing I love about neighbourhoods is it's the opposite of the CBD. More working from home actually means the neighbourhood strips have probably never been busier to the degree that they have a lot of work from home residents.
Yep.
Because they're just there more of the time. So it is more of a breakfast, lunch, dinner thing. And a lot of cafes in Melbourne, I think, that were probably okay businesses before COVID are now incredible businesses because they're not 2 and 3 days a week anymore, plus coffee in the morning. They are 7 days a week. Full. So I can kind of see that, and I think I'd love to be part of that same property challenge. Yeah.
My final question to you, Dean, is what is the smallest operational change you've made inside Smithburg that's given the biggest impact?
We're actually about to renovate our lobster shack that we have outside. So we've got another kitchen outside that does lobster rolls, and we use a flat top grill to toast our buns and things. Yep. We've done a seafood festival here a few times, and we used, sandwich presses and things like that to toast the buns. And I got to tell you, when we ran that festival, I just went, geez, I'm not very smart. It made life so much easier to just put the bread in the toaster. Don't bother doing the flat top grill, which you probably see in the old school lobster shacks. Where I'm kind of going, we want to do it like that.
Yes.
But just a little bit of technology. Fast toast, gets it nice and hot inside. The lobster roll tastes better. The staff are much happier. It doesn't generate the heat of everything else. So it's kind of a win-win-win-win-win. So I think that's probably the one change that we are in the process of making right now that I think will make the biggest change. Outside of that, it's just all of the stuff for hospitality, Understand where your cost of goods are going, understand where your labour's going, make sure your team's engaged and making sure that customers are having a good time. Like, it's not rocket science, but it is hard. Like, it's really hard to do that consistently. So if you've got any ideas, mate, about talking to other operators that what we should change to make life easier, because I didn't grow up in restaurants.
Yes.
That would be it. I'm also looking at a few technology solutions to just make more manual processes, more kind of screen-based, whether that's iPad-based training at the station where people do stuff, I think is stuff that we're looking at. So there'll be a few more of those in the future. But at the moment, it's as simple as a toaster. That's made all the difference.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love your story of a supply guy opening up a venue, changing it, getting over your own ego and making it work, and now you're a success, and now you're looking at scaling. So, like, fucking well done
Yeah.
to get that done. Because a lot of people would have closed the doors and just gone to work for someone
Yep.
and would have had a great career, like you said before, but you didn't. You know, you went all to the wall and you've made it work, mate. So congratulations on success.
Yep.
And I can't wait to see more Smithburgs. But well done. Thanks for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Welcome to this episode of the Ingredients Podcast, brought to you by Tanda, helping the best venues get ahead. Now, if you run a great venue, but you want to be compliant at the same time, reach out to the Tanda team at hospitality@tanda.com.au.